I'm Graeme from Linn.
Okay. And what's your position at Linn?
I work as a business development manager through the UK and Europe.
Okay, cool. And you know all about the Linn Exact software.
I do.
And the room correction software.
Yeah.
So first question I think is what does it do, the software in the new Linn systems?
Okay. So if you've got a DS based system, be that a DS on its own or an exact system, we've got a piece of software called the config. And what the Linn config does is it's the heart of the system in terms of how you configure that system.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. So this is the config here, and what the config does is it recognises any of your DS players which are on your home network.
Yeah.
So you connect up your computer to your network, you'd open up the config, or certainly a retailer would do that when he's installing your product. And in the config it recognises any of the networkable Linn devices which are on your network and any of the servers that are there as well. So you can see we've got Alex's network here at Concerto Audio. We've got the Sneaky Music DS, the Magic DSM, Accurate DSM. We've also got them named depending on what zones or rooms they're in. So if you imagine that in your house, you could call that your living room, your bedroom, your bathroom, your kitchen, wherever you've got Linn systems throughout the house. Yeah. Here we've also got the UPnP media servers as well, so the Linn Kazoo server, which allows you to access your music through your home as well. So simply what you're doing is you're selecting whichever device you want to configure. And in this instance, we are using a Linn Exact system comprising the Series 5 loudspeakers, the 520 system.
Yeah, those are the new ones.
These are the new ones, that's right. We've just launched recently. So it recognises the 520s are there with the serial numbers and all the firmware and everything you need to know about the product. Then what we've done here is selected which fabric we're using, because the Exact engine allows us to adjust the signal for the fabric.
Yeah, there's the sleeve around the speaker.
That's right, exactly. So once we've done that bit, we can then go in and configure the DS in terms of if it's a DSM, there's lots of inputs on the back, so we can tell the DSM what's connected to it, we can rename the inputs. We can do a lot of different technical things here, which allows when the user's using the product for it to be nice and easy to use, and for anyone in the house to use it all. Yeah. So it's a piece of software which a retailer would use, and any customers who are quite technical.
So you could completely customize your system or DS
system. Customize your system. Yeah, exactly. Over here we've got an Exact tab. So like I said, that's where we set up the loudspeakers. Now this bit's the interesting bit as well. So we've got space optimization tab.
Yeah.
Now, typically in a hi-fi system, it was impossible to do anything about what the room was doing to the sound. Sure. And so when you sit and listen to your house, your system at home, you're listening to a combination of what your loudspeakers are doing, but also what the room is doing as well. And if you've got a particularly difficult room, which creates a lot of bass or a lot of high energy points, previously it was impossible to eliminate these points. But what the config does, or what this allows you to do, is to create an acoustic model of the room. So if you see here, if we go to, let me just close this. So you see this part here that says change settings.
What does it calculate when you enter, I got a concrete wall, or I got a wall with a cavity? Yeah. Is it because of reflection or absorption of sound?
Everything. So what we're using is acoustics, predetermined characteristics of what happens within a certain space. Yeah. What happens to sound waves, if you like. And we create an acoustic model using the config, and then config will identify in a room of this size, with walls and different features as we put into config, what is likely to happen within that space. Okay, and it will determine where the areas of high energy exist, which will mask the music that you're going to hear. The easiest way to try and give you an example of that is if I'm speaking in the middle of the room and then I move towards the corner, immediately you can hear my voice changing. Yeah, so different areas of the room do different things because sound waves are bouncing off all the surfaces. But then you get these areas of high energy, which mean that anything that comes after them gets masked by that area of high energy, and that's what we're trying to remove. Yeah. Okay, so config works up to about 100 hertz. So we're really trying to take away those low frequency, high energy areas.
It doesn't work above 100 hertz?
You can customize filters, but as soon as you start going above 100 hertz, you start moving into the sort of vocal range. You start you start altering the music, if you like. And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to take away the fundamental problem within the room that would prevent you from hearing the music as good as it should be.
And that's more in the low frequencies than in the
most definitely, because
mid-high.
Yeah, so the larger sound waves at the bottom, the high energy areas, that's where a lot of the problem exists.
So that's a fundamental difference between most active room correction systems and exact. Sorry, space optimization.
That's right. So what we do is we separate the two things. So we separate what the loudspeaker is doing from what the room is doing. And you have to work in these two different areas to be able to determine which area you're trying to correct, right, or optimize, if you like. Yeah. So if you think about using a microphone, what you're trying to measure, it's difficult to understand whether it's the loudspeaker or whether it's the room that's actually going down the microphone. Whereas when we do it in the exact engine, we're able to determine exactly what the loudspeaker is doing compared to what the room is doing, and only correct for the issues that exist within the room, so that what you're hearing is a more accurate representation.
Cool.
Okay.
Can you show us how you can...
Of course. So once we've entered our room dimensions, and the wall surfaces and any features or characteristics about those walls. That's right. Yeah, so you can use tape, or there's all these different sort of laser measuring systems as well. It creates an acoustic model here. Yeah. Or that's the sort of graphic representation that you can see where the speakers are, where's the listening position. So you can enter the sort of the prime listening position within the room as well. What we've done here is we've tuned the system and determined what the ideal position would be for these speakers. And we've entered the distance from the back wall, the distance from the side wall, and also the distance that the plinth is off the ground. So we're putting in specific measurements for the ideal position. Yeah. You can also enter a practical position. You know, the modern home quite often determines that where you want the loudspeakers to be is different from the ideal position. Yeah, for obvious reasons. It could be a variety of different reasons. It gives you the option here of putting in a practical position.
And then it simulates whether it's, this is where you want it, and it's the practical position.
Yes, so that's the ideal position is where the system will sound at its best.
Yeah.
And then when you optimize the system, it will take away all the problem areas of the room. So you're getting an ideal situation, hence the ideal position. However, if in your room you want the loudspeakers to be in a different position, then previously, if you were to move those loudspeakers to that position, it would greatly affect the quality of the sound that you were hearing.
Absolutely.
But now by putting into config that there's a practical position where you want it to be, it will then adjust the system so you can hear the same quality of sound that's in the practical position as was in the ideal position. Cool. So you're getting the best of every world possible. Yeah. So once we've done that and we optimize, it generates this graph here. If you can point out there.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, and what that's showing you here, it's up to about 100 Hertz, is the areas in which config has determined will be a problem. Okay, and you can go into...
This is a pretty nasty room.
That is I've seen worse. Oh wow! It's not too bad actually, but what it is saying is that around about 40 Hertz, it's worth attenuating, about 30 dB. Yeah. However, what config doesn't know is what carpets you're using, or whether there's a lot of seats, or whether the curtains are heavy. And so there's a huge element of personalisation here. So what the Linn retailer can do is, although this is presenting a first pass at what is likely to be wrong in the room, again, we always believe that the specialist retailer is the guy who's got the best knowledge about how to set up a system, and should use the human ear, which is by far the most powerful listening instrument, of course. So you can adjust every single one of these room nodes to personalise the system exactly to the customer's home. So this isn't a one-touch system, it's a set of tools that the retailer will use to help get everything possible out of the system in whichever room in the house it's going to be in. And that can be for any room at all. So it creates this model, and then the retailer goes through and he then adjusts that and personalises it for the customer. Okay. And once it's done, it's loaded in the exact engine, and that's it.
Cool. So potentially you can alter a lot of frequency bands, but you say, well, up to 100 Hertz you can correct, but after that, please don't.
We're trying to address the fundamental issues that would prevent you from hearing the recording at home. Yeah. Now, obviously, Linn products, you're trying to engineer all the areas of loss out of a hi-fi system. Mm-hmm. And that's what Exact is all about, is eliminating those areas of loss that would traditionally be difficult to eliminate. Yeah. But obviously there's this big issue with a room as well, and a room will have an effect on what you eventually hear. And so what the config allows you to do is to enter all the dimensions, create the acoustic model, and eliminate those areas. Now, what we're using is a full-blown exact system.
Yeah.
But if anyone who's got a DS player can download the something called space optimization, which comes as part of any DS player. And what that allows you to do is get many of the elements of an exact system, certainly in terms of room correction and optimization, for any loudspeaker. So whether you use a Linn loudspeaker or whether you use another manufacturer's speaker, by putting a DS into that system, we've created profiles for many of the most popular loudspeakers. In fact, you can now do it with any loudspeaker. We can create a profile for any loudspeaker there is out there, and you can optimize that speaker using a Linn DS, which is fantastic.
That's pretty cool.
Anyone can use a DS or a DSM, regardless of whether it's a Linn system or a mix and match system.
Okay, and well, when would you use this? In every house, or when you say, well, if you can place your speakers optimal, you don't really need this?
Well, it's not only about loudspeaker position, it's about what the room is doing.
Yeah.
And so anytime we set up a system, we would most definitely use the config to try and understand what is likely to happen within this room. Every room will be different. Every room is furnished in a different way. Surfaces are different, amounts of glass, wood, size of the carpet. Really, it's difficult to understand what's going to happen until you actually put the system in. So we would always run config to try and understand if there's any problematic areas that we want to correct. However, it's personalization.
Yeah.
And so the customer can really have that system tuned to his own preference. Yeah.
And do you need a microphone to measure, or do you just put in the numbers and
it's all done through config. There's nothing to stop somebody using a microphone as well, but the system doesn't work off microphone technology. It works purely through the exact engine.
Okay. Thank you. We got a better knowledge of the software right now, what it's doing. So
good.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.